Namaste. I am Ruchir Gupta. Wish a very warm regards to all aspirants who are appearing this year in Vidyarthi Vigyan Manthan. I am really very thankful to the organizers of Vidyarthi Vigyan Manthan in considering the theme of Amrit Mahotsav this year, and particularly emergence of nationalist science movement. Actually, in India, is not just something done by few interested people. Rather, it created a kind of nationalist wave for the whole independence movement. In the last 500 years, the British attack was the last and different from all previous invasions of India, as they brought science with them and used it to rob the nation. They established many institutions, starting from the Survey of India in 1767, followed by many others like Geological Survey of India, Botanical Survey of India, etc. These were not research institutions, but the main aim was to do the necessary survey of our country to enable Britishers to exploit our nation as much as possible. To establish psychological supremacy, the Britishers always tried to push the narrative that Indians cannot think rationally and hence cannot pursue science. In response, nationalist scientists used their Western education to focus on the need for developing an indigenous scientific temper, where Indians of all classes would learn and benefit from scientific knowledge. They used science as a tool in India's freedom struggle. To understand their contribution, we will visit through the life sketches of a few scientists. Indian civilization is one of the oldest civilization in the world, and it could survive for such long time because of its scientific and rational attitude. When British came to India, they tried to prove that Indians were irrational and unscientific. Political activists generally did not counter their effort. It was Indian scientists that proved that British wrong. They received education in their system, and after coming to the motherland, they started an intellectual struggle with Britishers. They developed their own labs with almost no support and performed world class research. Moreover, they also paved the way for young emerging scientific brains by providing necessary guidance and facilities. Sir C.V. Raman was one such young scientist who later got the first Nobel Prize for any Asian in science discipline. In this endeavor, people who were not hardcore scientists also contributed a lot. For example, Dr. Mahindra Alsarkar, Sister Nivedita, Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya, Swami Vivekanand also acted as major pillars for the emergence of national scientists. So, to start with, we'll first talk about Dr. Mahindra Lal Sarkar. Mahendra Lal Sarkar was born on November 2nd, 1833, at Paikpara village in Howrah district near Kolkata. Dr. Sarkar was second medical graduate from the Kolkata Medical College in 1863. He was the president of Bengal branch of Medical Association. Earlier, he was a staunch critic of homeopathic system of medicine. In one case, he found the homeopathic system more effective than English system of medicines. Then he went through the homeopathy scientifically and systematically and understood the science behind it. Later, he presented his understanding in a meeting of British Medical Council. Consequently, he had to face much opposition and was removed from his position in the council. Later, Dr. Sarkar realized the importance of promoting Indian science and established the Indian Association for Cultivation of Science in 1876 after 10 years of continuous efforts. ISCES was funded and run by Indians. It was involved in preparing and helping Indian scientists to compete at international level. It was also involved in popularizing science through lectures and demonstrations. The most significant fruit of this endeavor was the 1930 Nobel Prize in Physics to Sir C.V. Raman. Actually, Sir C.V. Raman was an accountant who got inspired and used the facilities available with ISCS along with his regular job, and this actually led him to the Nobel Prize. Another great visionary and scientist was Acharya Profulchandray. Acharya Profulchandray was born on August 2nd, 1961 in the village of Rasuri Katipura in Jessore district, now in Bangladesh. He was one of the finest chemists of India. He was a pure nationalist by thought. One of his famous quotes was, "Science can wait, Swaraj cannot." He understood the role of economy for the freedom of the nation. In those days, sulfuric acid was considered to be crucial. Acharya Ray observed that the local manufacturer could only produce acid in a small amount in wasteful ways, so he assisted the Bhaduri brothers in acid production. He also started making sulfate of iron and phosphate and calcium. He also served as started a pharmaceutical company named Bengal Chemical, and that company still exists today. It was started in 1901 as first pharmaceutical company in India. Realizing the importance of ancient science, he wrote a book as a compendium of ancient chemistry named Hindu Chemistry. In 1924, he established the Indian Chemical Society for popularization of science among Indians. The society started the Journal of Indian Chemical Society. Despite his great intellect, he preferred to publish in Indian journals and inspires others also for the same. Another big name is Jagdish Chandra Basu. So Jagdish Chandra Basu was one of the finest scientists of India. He worked in many dimensions, from physics to botany. He born in November 30, 1858 in Munshiganj, now in Bangladesh. He studied at the University of Cambridge and the University of London. After returning, he tried to join Imperial Education Service but was denied the opportunity of on the British belief that Indians cannot think rationally and cannot pursue science. To counter this statement and uphold Indian pride, Bose took the path of Satyagraha and taught for 3 years without salary. Finally, British has to let down, and he was able to join the Imperial Education Service. He was the first in the world who experimentally demonstrated the transmission of microwave, but such an outstanding achievement was not recognized, and later Marconi was awarded Nobel Prize for demonstrating his work on long distance wireless telegraph. On September 14, 2012, Bose's experimental work in millimeter wave radio was recognized as an IEEE milestone in electrical and computer engineering. He was also uh, involved in other streams. So he carried out many important discoveries in the subject of botany, biophysics, and many others. He was a firm believer that Indian ideology of free knowledge. He never patented for his discovery and advocated for the same. He also wrote many science fiction stories for popularizing science. In 1917, on his birthday, he started a science institution named Basu Vigyan Mandir for interdisciplinary experimental research. In his inaugural address, he said, I dedicate this institute today not merely as a laboratory but as a temple. The power of physical methods applies to the establishment of the truth, which can be realized directly through our senses or through the vast expansion of perceptive range by means of artificially created organs. 32 years ago, I chose the teaching of science as my vocation. It was felt that by its very peculiar constitution, the Indian mind would always turn away from the study of nature to metaphysical speculations. Even had the capacity for inquiry and accurate observation been assumed to be present, and there were no opportunities for their employment. There were neither well equipped laboratories nor skilled mathematicians. These, this was all too true. It is not for the men to complain of circumstances, but bravely to accept, to confront, and to dominate them. And we belong to the race which has accomplished great things with simple means. Next, we'll talk about Meghnad Saha. So, Meghnad Saha was a renowned physicist born in 1893 in a village near Dhaka. He was professor and dean of science faculty of University of Kolkata. He was elected fellow of Royal Society in 1927 and president of Indian Science Congress in 1934. He is known for Saha equation, one of the essential tools for interpreting the spectra of stars in astrophysics. Along with Satyendranath Bose, he translated Albert Einstein and Hermann Minkowski's paper on relativity for easy availability in India. He was a nationalist and contributed to political activities as well. And finally, we'll talk about the Nobel laureate Sir Chandrasekhar Venkatraman. Sir Chandrasekhar Venkatraman was one of the greatest physicists and the first Indian and Asian to win the Nobel Prize in the discipline of science. He may be considered the first fruit of the nationalist science movement started by Dr. Mahindra Alsarkar by establishing Indian Association for Cultivation of Science. Raman was born on November 7, 1888 in Tiruchirappalli. He qualified for India's most prestigious government service in those days, Indian Finance Services, with first rank and joined as Assistant Accountant General in Kolkata. There he came in contact with ISCES. He started working there in his off hours. ISCES started a journal, Bulletin of Indian Association for Cultivation of Science in 1909, to which Raman was major contributor. Raman referred to his ISCES days as golden days of his life. He founded the Indian Academy of Sciences in Bangalore in 1934 and started publishing the Academy's journal Proceedings of Indian Academy of Sciences. He also started a company called Travancore Chemical and Manufacturing Company Limited in 1943. In 1948, he established Raman Research Institute in Bangalore for basic research. So we can easily observe that the Indian scientists contributed overwhelmingly in nurturing all encompassing spirit of nationalism. However, the contribution of Indian scientists in fostering nation identity has remained overshadowed in the study of freedom struggle. So we believe that with this kind of observations and studies, students will be aware of the contributions made by Indian scientists, and eventually the whole story of unsung heroes will come out. Thank you.